serving spiritual seekers around the world. Unity Online Radio. Thank you for tuning in for this Unity Partner Program. Unity Online Radio partners with spiritual leaders from organizations whose mission and messages complement Unity's. We are pleased to bring you this program on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world.
Welcome to Living on Purpose with psychology doctoral candidate Jessie Herriott from Atlanta, Georgia. Are you ready to make the switch? A switch from barely living to living on purpose. During the next hour, you will discover principles to help you live a fully functioning, conscious, and purposeful life. The all is mine, and so are you. Let's live on purpose. Now, here's your host, Jessie Herriott.
Thank you, folks, for tuning in to an exciting hour of Living on Purpose right here at Unity Online Radio, where our mission here is to basically help you to uncover the essence of who you really are, to live free and to fully embrace your life as you know it to be. This is what Living on Purpose and living freely and fully is all about, switching from an autopilot existence and becoming fully engaged and present and aware. So in this hour, we are going to be discussing some very interesting and hot topics. I'm sure you're going to love it. I don't want to prolong the hour. I want to go right ahead and introduce our guest on this week. She is none other than Gangaji. Just to tell you a bit about Gangaji for those who weren't already blessed by her powerful teaching and work. Gangaji, her teacher was the great H.W.L. Poonja in 1990. Before that meeting, she spent time searching for happiness and uncovering things about her own life and her own soul, and she immersed herself in activism, psychological self-expression, and various spiritual practices. And her meeting with Papaji, his students, allowed her to deeply inquire into herself, and through that inquiry, she discovered silent, awake consciousness, and she realized that as herself, as everyone else. And Papaji asked that she invite all who are interested to inquire and discover for themselves. And for the last 19 years, she's traveled the globe offering this invitation and supporting others into this deep inquiry. She's the author of Hidden Treasure, Uncovering the Truth in Your Life Story, and The Diamond in Your Pocket, and You Are That, which can all be found at bookstores all over the world, wherever books are sold. She lives with her husband, Eli Jackson Bear, in Oregon and offers retreats in the U.S., Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and Germany. You can visit her website for more information about her events. Without further ado, welcome to the program, Gangaji.
Oh, thank you, Jesse. Really happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you here in cyberspace.
Yes. Yes, here, everywhere.
I know. So, Gangaji, can you take us real quick, for those who are just getting to know you that are listening to the program and some of the veterans, where did the name Gangaji come from?
My teacher, Papaji, gave me the name for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, my name was Toni, and some people still call me Toni, but it didn't make sense to him. He said, Toni, what does that mean? Where's the meaning in that?
Yeah.
And then he had the goddess Ganga, and I actually meeting him for the first time, banks of the Ganga. We know what Ganges. And so he gave me that name, and I was thrilled. And then later he said, call myself Gangaji, so that he'd show me respect. Oh. So I was never looking for a name, and in fact, I had made fun of people who came back from India with strange names. But I am honored to work with me.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So to offer a glimpse into your own, what they call in psychology individuation or becoming whole, and the unfolding of your own soul. what I'm not sure how to ask this question, but what was the journey like for you that led you up, into where you are now, that led you to, by chance, to meet Papaji and to travel to India and then, access this part of your life? What was the journey like?
Well, I started out like a lot of spiritual seekers, I think, in that I just wanted to be happy, and if I look back in my life, I can see that started pretty early. I wasn't happy, and I wanted to be happy, and so I pursued lots of avenues for getting happiness. And I guess I thought at the time as pleasure. I was looking for pleasure, and I found pleasure, but in lots of different ways. But I also found that as pleasurable as pleasure can be, there's a depth that is still wanted when one is truly spiritually searching. And it took me years to realize that my search for happiness was a spiritual search. And by the time I was in my 40s, in my mid-40s, I realized that I had lived a full life, but something was still. I was successful at that time in my life, and my daughter was healthy. I was in a good relationship, but there was something I was longing for that satisfied. And I prayed for a teacher. I had been with other teachers before, and I had benefited from teachers, but I never felt the particular bond of this is my teacher. And I knew I needed someone who even if that pointing me back to my own unhappiness. And I ended up in India. I was never searching for a guru, but I ended up a guru. And to me, it's just part of the whole surprise of life. I started out as if I go back to when I first realized I was unhappy and wanted to be unhappy, I was a little girl in Mississippi, and I'd never heard of India. And to end up at the feet of this master and to receive his transmission and to hear his invitation is it's such a surprise, and it couldn't have been planned. There's no way I could have planned that because I didn't even know what I wanted.
Wow, was there one event in your life that kind of contributed to this unfolding, or were there many events, many little breaking points, what we call, points where it's like you're standing at the edge of the cliff and it's like, do you go backwards or do you just dive off into the mystery?
Yes, that's a good question, Jesse. Well, there were many, and there are big moments that stand out when I look back. At the time, some of the moments that turned out to not be so big seemed to be really big, but I'd say one of the big moments was when I realized, I was in my 20s, and I realized that my idea of happiness, which that time in the early 60s for a Southern girl was to find a good marriage, to find a good man, and he would take care of you. And I had found a good marriage and a good man, and I'd had a child, and I recognized that it was a dead end for me, that it wasn't really what I was looking for, and that was a huge shock. And it was a shock that forced me to grow up and tell a deeper truth to myself. And shocks are quite uncomfortable sometimes, but they're necessary. And that was a huge necessary shock. And of course, I had many dead ends ahead of me and many more shocks. But that one turned my life around. We had left the South, and we were in San Francisco at that time, and this was now the early 70s, and San Francisco was exploding, and I happened to be there at that time, and it was very liberating. And also, I had to see the dead end of that level of liberation and search for something deeper, which is what finally led me to Papaji.
And that's an amazing piece what you said there. And it reminds me of, there's a teacher by the name of David Aida who talks about this purpose that we have, kind of sort of like a circle that's concentric. At the core of it is like our essential true purpose, and there are outer rings, and as we go through life, we accomplish different purposes, but we kind of feel that after we've accomplished them, that little dissatisfaction, after we've gotten married and done all those things, and it's like you become bored with it or burnt out, and then it's time you shed a certain layer of that, you move to a deeper aspect of that purpose or your center. Is that kind of the process for you, and where does this longing come from?
Oh, what a mystery. I think that's a beautiful description. It's like breaking out of a cocoon and then successive cocoons. And I rarely use the word God because the word is so misused, it seems, in our times. But I'd say it comes from God. It comes from this divine mystery that we can't control, and yet we can't deny either. And finally we learn to surrender to it, and then it guides our life. It has our life.
So surrender to this impulse, this longing. This isn't a bad thing then. Because there are a lot of folks that I hear talking, they get nervous and scared and fearful when they feel it, because it goes against the status quo, because looking around, you would think, based on things that are external, you should be happy.
Yes, that's right. Well, it is scary. And I remember once as a little child having this huge experience of Christ. I was raised a Christian, and my heart just burst open, and it was huge, and I loved it, and it really freaked out my parents. It was too much. And of course, as a child, I was paying attention to them, and I recognized it was too much, and I began to push it under. Mm-hmm. And I believe that was part of my suffering that followed from that. I didn't listen to this inner call, and later when I would feel that call, I recognized that this is my life. If I don't listen to that simply because it's fearful, then I'm losing part of my life, and that's really what I invite people to do. I really support the longing in everyone, and usually what we do is we try to feed that longing with objects, like with success or with relationship, and not that there's anything wrong with success or relationship, but this longing is so much more primal, more essential, that finally, if you will just turn your attention to that longing, it leads you home. That's my discovery.
That's beautiful. How do we help to sort out and feel out this longing? Is it based on the strength of the impulse? How do we feel out, whether or not it's coming from, I hate to say a good place, but how do we know it's coming from that essential self-soul?
Well, I think it's being willing to make a mistake, and to tell the truth when you've made a mistake. I actually was married to a beautiful man, but really for the wrong reasons, and so there was a lot of mess that caused when I had to correct my course, so to speak, and I'm sorry about that, but I also learned a great deal from that, and so we get broadened when we make our mistakes, and we then have the capacity to tell deeper truths. We mature. It's all about growing up, really.
Yes, and that's beautiful in and of itself. There are a lot of folks that are listening and are probably thinking, because they're going through these transitionings and unfolding these different layers, that it feels like failure. Like you accomplish it, it's there, and then you get bored, and then you let it go, and it feels like failure, but it's not. It's not failure.
That's right. That is what I'm saying. I'm saying the feeling like failure is, I don't want to deny failure either, because we do fail at a lot of things, but when it is really a discovery, then there are certain falls that we take, or there are certain dead ends, or we finish with certain paths, and there can feel like this lack or even boredom, or that nothing is happening. And that's a really important time. It's part of a crossroads where you can just be willing to open to the truth, open to your own longing, open to the divine presence, and then discover what's next. And it is, it is out on a ledge. You use that metaphor, and I think that's really correct. And often we turn back from that ledge because it is so terrifying. But my teacher invited me to really let people know that over the ledge is into the endlessness of this discovery, of this, as you say in your program, a purposeful life, to me, is a fulfilled life. And this fulfillment is always deepening, and it's always fresh, and it's found like this in this kind of conversation, and most unexpectedly in nature, and in moments of grief, in moments of joy. It's found everywhere.
Yeah, and it's freeing. What is freedom to you in your work, Gangaji?
Oh, that's a good question, too. Well, it's interesting because freedom is also one of these words, like God or truth, that I think has been corrupted with our own minds, just in the usage. But freedom from me means recognition that I'm feeling what is happening to me, no matter what the circumstances are, in particular to me and globally, that there is at the core of that a spaciousness that is actually conscious and at peace. So in that sense, freedom and peace are the same.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful, folks. You are listening to a powerful conversation between myself and Gangaji. And if you are not able to tune in as you wish, you can go and log on to the website, unity.fm or unityonlineradio.org, and click on the show, and then download the show for your archives and for your library. It's compatible with all of your handheld devices, and there are even apps available for you to download it directly to your iPhone or iPad and listen to it while you're driving. But this is good stuff. Gangaji, we have to take a short break. But I want to ask you another question when we come back, because if we start the conversation now, we'll just go over our break.
Great.
Folks, stay tuned. I'm just here talking today with international spiritual leader, teacher, and author Gangaji. More from Living on Purpose.
If you've been inspired by the programming on Unity Online Radio, we hope you'll give your support so others may be inspired too. This online radio network depends on the love offerings of listeners to continue operating and expand its outreach. Please visit www.unity.fm and click on Donate Now. Thank you.
Who have you come here to be? It's a question we all ponder from time to time. Reverend Kelly Isola, host of Spiraling Consciousness, and her co-authors have crafted a guidebook that will take you on a profound journey. If you long for love, peace, and joy, or yearn for commitment, passion, calm, or clarity, this book teaches you that you already have all of these within you. Whatever you long to experience outside of you is an aspect of you wanting to be birthed. Who have you come here to be? 101 Possibilities for Contemplation is part daily reader, part spiritual practicum. Drenched in gorgeous imagery, each powerful page invites readers to dance, to leap, to sit still, to stand tall as they ponder the question, who have I come here to be? Join the journey of self-discovery. Come explore the world within, an infinite field of possibilities, to discover who have you come here to be. To order your copy of Who Have I Come Here to Be? 101 Possibilities for Contemplation, go to www.whohaveyoucomeheretobe.com. That's www.whohaveyoucomeheretobe.com.
Unity Online Radio is turning 5 this year, and we're throwing the biggest bash of all. A cruise to the Caribbean, November 10th through 17th, 2012. We'll celebrate in style aboard Holland America Line's Eurodam, with sunshine, fine dining, and a selection of island excursions at beautiful ports of call in the Eastern Caribbean. Plus, feed your spirit with music, message, and meditation. Your favorite host will be there, and we hope you join us too as we celebrate 5 years of spiritual programming at Unity Online Radio. For more information, go to www.unity.fm/cruise.
You've been listening to Living on Purpose with Jesse Herriott. If you have a question or comment about today's broadcast, or if you'd like to join in the discussion, friend us on Facebook at Jesse Herriott or email us at livingonpurpose@unity.fm. Now, more Living on Purpose.
And we're back. We're having a delightful conversation with an amazing spiritual teacher, spiritual leader, and author, Gangaji. Gangaji, you there?
I'm here.
Beautiful. Gangaji, I really want to dig into some of the questions that much of the world has been asking lately, some of the quote-unquote hot topics in the external happenings that are going on, political arenas, the economy, job market, and all of that. From your perspective, Gangaji, and your teachings, who are we, and what do you have to say regarding all of these processes and external happenings that are going on?
Well, first of all, I'll preface it by saying I've always been interested in history, and I've read some history, and it's always been a mess. The world has always been a mess. I remember reading a book years ago by a woman, Barbara Tuchman, who was writing about the 14th century, and it was horrible. It was disaster. It was like the end of the world. And so I'm not sure that our times are any worse than any others. I think that what makes our time unique is this conversation is a demonstration of that, is that we are able to communicate with each other on all parts of the globe simultaneously. And that, I believe, moves things faster. And so we're aware of things that change so quickly, you know, whether it's world events or something that's going on in our local schools or even in our homes. And so it does seem like that the technology, the revolution of technology, has sped up history here. What I have to say is a total mystery to me. I'm not a prophet, first of all, so I don't know how it will turn out. But I know that we each have an opportunity to play fully and be fully engaged and to come from this place of purpose or this place or space of fulfillment or freedom. It releases the energy and the attention span to be able to participate in ways that are undreamed of when we are caught in the web of our
Gangaji, do you think simplicity is the key?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I'm sorry about that. Do you think simplicity is the key?
Well, definitely inner simplicity is the key, because in the willingness to give up our complicated mental gyrations, we discover a simple and yet fathomless not simplistic, but simple, peace and freedom that all the complications of a very fast-moving world can come to and not disturb. And so many people choose to live very simple lives as well and feel fulfilled, but I don't think it's the outside life that has to be simple. It's the inner life, and that's a quiet life, really.
And Gangaji, I heard you speak on this topic before, and it's something that I like to explore in my own work as well. What does it mean to live? And I think you addressed a portion of this in the first half, but what does it mean to live fully? Is there a particular point in our lives in which it should start? Not biologically speaking, of course, but is there a certain tipping point, or is there certain signs and signals we should be looking for? What does it mean to live fully in your teachings?
Well, I think it's really linked into this longing, because I see some people are very content or content enough with their lives and aren't disturbed by any longing that appears. But there are those of us, and I make the assumption that everyone listening to this are connected with unity or connected with spiritual seeking in any way, has already been touched by some longing, and that longing is a call to live more fully. I don't have a formula what it looks like. I don't think that there is any formula. When we discover it through stumbles and falls, but we no longer grasping for our identity when we have recognized that this simple I am is so vast. I am a success, or I am a failure, or I am enlightened, I am unenlightened. We don't need to attach anything to I am, just to be. Then we get swept into being more and more fully.
And
I certainly never imagined that I would be. Yeah, I never imagined that I would be in Germany speaking to you in Atlanta, and to whomever else is listening. This is beyond plan or beyond imagination. It's the surprise of life.
I know. The mystery is so beautiful when things unfold like that. I want to ask you, just to follow up with that, I heard you mentioned one time before in your teachings about spiritual traps. What are spiritual traps that we fall into?
The way our human minds work, really anything could be a trap. Because things is we experiences, and then we conceptualize those experiences, and we take the most sublime, indefinable experience and we give it a definition and a location. And so we do that spiritually, so that even this word freedom or the word God or the word truth or purpose can become a trap if we try to own it, if we try to know it in a mental thinking way rather than to live it and to be known by it. And so I'd say the traps are what was perhaps medicine and then becomes poison. And we have to be willing to tell the truth within ourselves of where that has happened.
That's beautiful. So you're saying that by trying to own these and confine them to a specific mental occurrence versus trying to just experience them, like for people who meditate and they're stuck on the specific practice that we talked about on last week, versus trying to just allow the practice to unfold itself, because perhaps you can't sit and meditate for 3 hours for that day, or you can't, recite, the Torah in Hebrew, but allowing life to kind of unfold in its own way. Is that what you're talking about or hinting at? Or?
Well, yes, I am. And really what that requires is a level of trust that, in fact, it is unfolding. And in fact, that which unfolds is quite capable of unfolding, and that we don't have to be the director. We can respond to that unfolding and I really relate to what you say about the 3 hours in meditation, because before I'd met Papaji, I considered myself a Buddhist and in Zen Buddhism, and I was not a natural meditator. It was very useful for me to have that form, that practice, because it trained my mind to be more trainable. I had just a natural mind that was all over the place, and so it was useful, and I know that practice can be quite useful for the body, for the mind, for mind. There is something that cannot be practiced, and that's life. Life is being lived. And if we separate life into our practice and then our daily life or our spiritual life and our real life, then that's a trap. That to me is an example of a very big trap.
And how
we have to be willing to...
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I finished.
Because I'm enjoying this, and before I can get the questions out, you're just answering them just in the flow of conversation. So this is beautiful. I love the synchronicity. In your own flow, in your own development, how were you able to kind of sort of feel out those traps and not become, locked into, those experiences? There's some research, even on the psychological end, Gangaji, that talks about being locked into a Satori experience, comparing everything to that one experience, the way a drug addict compares all of the hits to that one high, and chasing that one moment.
Yes, I see that. And speaking to people, they're bliss junkies, is what I call them. And
yeah.
Of course, we love bliss, and it becomes a poison, as any junkie can tell you. And so, it's really what my teacher said to me, and what has been so profound for me is, he said, states that come and go, and all states come and go, are finally useless. Always here. That means here in bliss, here in misery. This is the freedom. This is the spaciousness. Then we don't have to formulate ourselves to fit a certain ideal. We can actually appreciate our uniqueness, but be living in a way that's free of that uniqueness.
That's beautiful. So are states different from stages? Like different states of consciousness versus stages in our lives? Because when you think about stages, they seem to only last but a brief period of time, even if they are different from states of consciousness.
Oh, that's good, Jesse. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's really good. Well, that's right. I think there can, of course, be a lot of states in a stage, but stages too end. And so when he gave us the assignment to find out what comes and goes and find out what is always here, then I had to see that every object that we experience, whether that's a material object or a subtle object like a state, comes and goes. And certainly the ages or the stages of my life have come and gone. And yet there is this awareness that is aware of itself, that has always been here, or at least has been here. And each one of us has that. And often it's in the background, and the opportunity is to allow that to be in the foreground.
How do we find what comes and goes and versus what stays? Are there any specific techniques to feel that awareness, or is it just complete attunement to the thoughts and recognizing you're separate from the thoughts? Or is it more than that?
Well, I think it's the willingness to tell the truth, first of all, because there are some things that come and go, but we so desperately hope that they won't go, or they won't come, so we aren't willing to tell the truth. So tell the truth, that's really where we recognize this bliss wasn't here yesterday, which means it's likely that it won't be here sometime in the future, or this success, or this person, or this thought, this emotion, whatever it may be. So all forms, material forms, gross forms, subtle forms, are born and they die. Mm-hmm. They are life forms, whether that's emotions, people, worlds, but life itself remains constant. And mm-hmm. life is this conscious awareness, and mm-hmm. it's always here. We can check and see. So in many ways, it's very practical and very not esoteric. It's very mundane. You just be willing to tell the truth. What comes and goes. Then it can be quite a shock because it's always here, but we've had our attention on what comes and goes. Our attention gets put on the objects, and we try to keep certain ones, and they go. We try to keep certain ones away, and they come, because that's just the nature of life form on this planet.
And that's beautiful. Oh man, folks, if you are listening and taking this information in, hang on, and definitely go back and download the information for your archives and for your own personal library. So Gangaji, how were you able to, basically, how are we able to, with the message and the information and all of this stuff that we're receiving on a constant basis from yourself and from all sorts of spiritual teachers, how are we able to take the esotericness of the message? Mm-hmm. And because yours is so wrapped in practicality, but for other things that we are experiencing in our own internal things that are going on, how are we able to basically wrap it in practicality so that we can use it on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I believe the most useful question you can ask is, what do I truly want? Mm-hmm. And if there's an answer that is, well, I really want, my love me or my wife to be nice or to get a promotion, then you can ask yourself another question, which is, what will that give me? Mm-hmm. And if the answer are freedom or love or silence, then you can take that opportunity and stop looking for that, and just for a moment, just for an instant, to recognize that the phrase is proof that already within yourself, peace or love or God, that you couldn't desire it if it weren't already known. It's already alive in you. And so any teaching then from any religion or any school, as far as I can see, finally gets back to that very essence, is that whether it's Christian, I and my Father are one, or if it's Buddhist, the emptiness of the universe. This emptiness, of course, is not what our thinking mind says emptiness is, and the divine play, and the Hindus with all of their mandala of gods, it's all finally this truth that is never separate from daily life, and yet is the most extraordinary, most inconceivable, indefinable truth of our lives, that it's always present, and that's what we can surrender to. And of course, then any teaching can support, it can be either the medicine or the poison.
That's beautiful. Folks, I'm Jesse Herriott, talking today with international spiritual leader, teacher, and author Gangaji. Stay tuned right here at Unity Online Radio. We'll be back with more of the conversation.
He's the most talked about figure in history. How do you see Jesus? As a savior, a way-shower, a mythical hero? In his cutting-edge new book, Jesus 2.1, An Upgrade for the 21st Century, Reverend Dr. Thomas Shepard explores the many human concepts of Jesus.
The man of Nazareth has been an imaginary spiritual playmate for millions. Best friend, confidant, silent lover, surrogate father, brother, husband, trusted king when earthly governments fail, all-purpose superhero who will save the day before the final credits roll. Jesus is like a program that has been adapted through the ages while the basic code remains undisturbed despite all subsequent modifications. Now it is our time to rewrite and reinstall the Jesus program with updates for today, just as every previous generation has done and every subsequent generation will do. The Romans killed Jesus for being a revolutionary. Every succeeding generation kills him anew by losing sight of the ongoing revolution in human consciousness that he represents.
Explore the new book, Jesus 2.1, at www.shopunity.org.
You know the saying, a good deed is its own reward? Well, moving toward a plant-based diet and vegan lifestyle is one kind and compassionate act that isn't just its own reward. It will also reward you with vibrant health, boundless energy, an easy way to keep your weight where you want it, and, according to Yogis and Unity's co-founder Charles Fillmore, even give a boost to your spiritual life. On Main Street Vegan, the radio program named for their popular book, the delightful mother-daughter duo, Victoria and Adair Moran, will make your move in a vegan direction easy, fun, affordable, and delicious, with enticing topics and entertaining guests every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, only on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world.
You've been listening to Living on Purpose, where psychology meets spirituality. Now, here is your host, Jesse Herriott.
Thank you so much, folks. We are continuing a dynamic discussion with international spiritual leader and teacher and author Gangaji. And if you missed the first halves of the show, definitely go back to unity.fm or unityonlineradio.org and download the show for your archives. This will bless you and it will help you in your own evolution and your own individuation, as Carl Jung said, your path to wholeness. So Gangaji, to jump back into your work, where is your work evolving to now? Tell us about your foundation and what's going on in your teachings and what are you doing now?
Well, when Papaji asked me to speak to people, he said, you have to go door to door.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize what that meant. That was over 20 years ago, and I still travel quite a bit. I'm in Germany now, and I go to Australia for part of the year. I'm in the U.S. for part of the year, and different part. Going back to India this year, taking a group to Lucknow to visit Papaji's house and where he gave satsang. And I would say it's all a surprise, and my job is to simply respond to the call from those people who will benefit from my teachings. I'm not a missionary. I'm not here to convince anybody. And some people respond and some people don't. But if there is a response, then it is my great joy to meet that response in support. In support and as a challenge to recognize how we entrap ourselves and how we can stop that entrapment by being willing to stop believing our narrative and return to direct experience. So there are many meetings, and really people can best find me on my website. I think it's good to spell my name, though, because sometimes it's complicated for people. So it's GANGAJI.org. It's the name my teacher gave me.
Beautiful. And you have a monthly webcast series called With Gangaji that listeners can join in. How do we access that? Is it through the website as well?
Yes, it's the website has full instructions, and that's been really wonderful to gather once a month like this. Sometimes it's webcast, sometimes it's just telecast, and speak with people all over the world, and then people can break into groups and meet with each other. And there's also a forum where an online forum where people can make their comments and share with each other. And over this year or so that it's been going, I've watched it mature and develop, because really, Jesse, we're all here to help one another. We all need one another. And so like this, like your show, this goes out to so many people, and you're making yourself and your time available so that you can be a support. And I know what fulfillment that is. Yeah. And I salute you in that.
Oh, thank you. I receive that. It's a sense of fulfillment, and that I can't describe it. It's a part of that concentric ring where you shed various levels of your who you are, and you complete things, but then you move on and you get to deeper and deeper levels of your own inner fulfillment. And this is kind of sort of this is part of that, because the fulfillment is there, and it's with ease. You feel that learning curve at first, but then it's natural. Like like you've been doing it all the time since before you realized it.
It's great.
How are you able to get into your flow? Like Ganga, is there a specific flow for Gangaji versus a specific flow for a Toni?
Well, once I had met my teacher, that really changed everything for me, because even though I do sometimes still go by the name Toni, the person I was before I met Papaji was always searching for something more. And this that I am in my life now, lived after meeting Papaji, is always discovering more. Even in moments that aren't maybe the best moments, there's more there. There's a discovery, and that's my role, is to speak what cannot be spoken, to live a life without formula, even though it may look like there's a formula, and it may sound like I'm speaking what I've always spoken. From my own experience, it's new and fresh, and that's what I invite people to. That's the possibility of a life. And so the meetings I have vary. Sometimes I have retreats that are held in conversational silence, so that people don't engage in conversation. We meet a couple of times a day, and usually they're in beautiful places, and we really allow ourselves to be saturated with the support of each other and the lineage and all lineages. And then also just public meetings. I was just recently in Grass Valley, California, for a really lively, wonderful open meeting. I think there were probably 300 people there, and they just were so intelligent and asking questions that came from experience, and yet came from this desire that is alive in us to be free, to be fulfilled, to live purpose.
That's so beautiful. And man, that was my question. I heard you give a satsang one time before, and I was looking at the clip of it, and there was someone who had a question about functioning. Like, how do we take this liveliness and this vitality that we feel, and how do we engage our world with it? Because there's a group of us that are able to, take the information in, but then we can't engage, and we just cut the external world off completely. How do we function from this vein?
Well, I think that when the question is how do we take it, it's really just upside down. The question really is, how is this going to take me?
Oh, wow.
How is this fullness going to express itself, and where am I in the way of that expression? How am I blocking that? How am I denying that? We were speaking earlier of denying the longing. How am I denying this flow? And the willingness to tell the truth then, of course, reveals our patterns of protection or denial, and we can get out of our way. We can get out of our own way.
Oh, that's beautiful. There's one teacher who talks about this like you said, this inner denial, and we tell ourselves the truth, and we say, yeah, we want our wife to be more loving, or this or that. But what do you think about the process of just bringing more love to the situation versus trying to get the situation to change? What do you think about that dynamic?
Well, that's a life of freedom. It's a life of love, because then you're actually bringing yourself to the situation, and that is our opportunity in day-to-day life. Yeah, and love is not always just smiling. Love can be ruthless and relentless and scary, and it finally does annihilate all versions of ourselves as separate. So the willingness to be yourself fully as love, and the willingness to not cling to a formula of how that looks is the discovery of the purposeful life.
And I have to ask this question towards the end. We only have about 5 minutes left in the show. Gangaji, what has your role as a teacher been like with students? Because I want to ask this for those that are listening that are, as you say, where you were praying for a teacher and listening to different teachers. How do we find that mentor, that works for us? Because there are different mentoring styles, and some are more harsher than the others. How do we find, what it is we need? Do you understand what the question I'm trying to ask?
Yes. It's such a relevant question, because we have ideas, ideas of what we need, but what we really need may be far removed from our ideas.
True.
But primarily, I'd say it's a matter of the heart. It's a matter of resonance. And also it's essential to check out your teacher, to really. Maybe you fall in love right away. I certainly did with my teacher, but I had, in a sense, checked him out before I met him. So I had good reports that he was the real thing. But it's important to be willing to both surrender and to be objective at the same time, so that you don't get caught in some kind of dance of submission that you really met in a way. It doesn't. I had a guru, and there was no doubt that I was his devotee, and I bowed to his feet. So, but I never thought I had to think like him or have his political views or dress like him, or I knew what he was in my life, and that was my spiritual teacher, and so it's a matter of, and sometimes it's a matter of being willing to make a mistake and then correct yourself from the mistake.
And I love that you keep stressing that throughout the program. It's okay to make a mistake or a misstep, because there are a lot of people who, they have this fanciful idea of spiritual work and spiritual practice. They don't want to fight anymore. They don't want to push, or they don't want to fail or try,
Yeah, well, that's the way it is. That's the way we learn to walk. That's the way we learn to fly. That's the way we learn to surrender. And that's the way our intelligence is developed and broadened, and our capacity for truth-telling. So I would say mistakes are essential. Yes,
they are, and I do agree. And this really does make for a practical approach to spirituality. It really does. It gives us something that we can work with. 2 minutes left and a half. Gangaji, what are some practices that you engage in on a daily basis?
Well, I love to meditate. I love to just surrender into this space of spaciousness. But I don't have a particular form or a time when that happens. I'm attracted to that space of deep rest. And so 2 or 3 times a day, I spend, anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour at a time in that space. But that's just simply what works for me. I don't really direct people in their practices, but I'd say the essential of living a life is to be willing to tell the truth. And in that truth-telling, to always be willing to tell the deeper truth, the unseen truth.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Gangaji, this has been an amazing conversation. I know those that are with you in Germany are going to have a wonderful time in your talks and in your meditation retreat. Thank you so much,
Jesse.
No
I love it too. I feel it from you. I am really, really happy to meet you this way.
Likewise. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the program.
Oh, thank you. Look forward to the next time.
I know, me too. Folks, that's been our show this week, Living on Purpose, right here at Unity FM Radio, the voice for an awakening world. Real quick, folks, if you would like to catch myself, I'll be teaching for the Kairos Institute in Decatur, Georgia. You can go to www.adtretreat.com to find out more information. I'll be teaching alongside some of the most amazing spiritual teachers in the Southeast. So for more information about my work, just log on to that website. That's our show again for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and laugh a lot, love someone, and definitely remember to live on purpose. Peace and blessings to you.
Thank you for tuning in to Living on Purpose, where psychology meets spirituality with Jesse Herriott. Listen in live every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central Time for more insights into psychology, ancient wisdom, and how it connects to your life today. Living on Purpose, only on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world. This program is brought to you in part by www.jesseherriott.com, where psychology meets spirituality. Connect with us on Facebook and YouTube. Keyword search Jesse Herriott.
Keys to Freedom, A Path to Metaphysical Recovery, takes an expanded view of the concept of recovery, unifying universal spiritual teachings and the 12-step process in a powerful hour of discussion, process, and transformation. In life, we have challenges that are beyond the realm of simple dependence, divorce, child abuse, unhealthy relationships, eating disorders, teenage bullying, the loss of a loved one, as well as addictions of all kinds. The 12 Keys to Freedom offers a path to wholeness by using a technology developed by Esther Nicholson, an agape spiritual practitioner, educator, world-renowned vocalist, and former addict. Her life story exemplifies the realization of wholeness from conditions of the most challenging kind. 12 Keys to Freedom takes us on a path from powerlessness to empowerment, moving to a realization of our inherent God-given wholeness, no matter who we are, what we have done, or how challenging our life experience has been. Join Esther Nicholson each Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time for 12 Keys to Freedom, A Path to Metaphysical Recovery, right here on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world.
Inspiration only takes a moment. Take a moment now to reflect on this message from Daily Word. Is something in your life causing you concern? Don't be discouraged. The presence of God is peace and harmony, healing and creative ideas, is with you every moment of every day, providing the help you need. In quiet moments of prayer, let go of any concern. Anchor your trust deep in the realization that with God all things are possible. Never doubt it for a single moment. You are a spiritual being, blessed with all that you need for happiness and fulfillment. God's wisdom will guide you. God's strength will help you do all that you need to do. And God's joy will lighten your heart with hope and courage.
This meditative moment is brought to you by Unity,